have to go back to where we were.
Sure. Can you look, please, before I start?
It's great.
Yeah.
So it was always the idea of where you're coming from and your perception. So first of all, would you mind spelling your name for me and also telling me what you would like to be titled?
Okay, I'm Khalid Kodi, and I would like to be called an artist, or an artist on the making, or an artist in progress.
Okay, so first of all, tell me a little bit about this exhibit and the background of it.
Well, I have been a very good friend of this gallery since 1994. This is my second solo show, and my relationship with the gallery is very much unique because Skoto have always opened this gallery to lots of artists, not necessarily from certain part of the world, but it's, I would say it's like a cultural, even though it's within the mainstream of New York art scene, but it introduced a lot of artists from Africa, from the Middle East, from Europe, and from the US, and also from Latin America. So I had a long relationship with art. This is my second solo show at Skoto's, and I had several group shows. So like I have been showing here for a while.
Now tell me about the theme in this exhibition.
The title of the show is Blue Tales, and blue is a color that really exciting, a color that it means a lot to lots of Africans who go out around the Nile or in the bank of the Nile, because we all think of water, we also think of that as an important color, an important element in how we formulate. And blue is the color of the sky, blue is the color of the ocean, blue is the color of emotions as well. I have been living here for a while, we'll be talking about that later. But there is a whole tradition of blues, which is music and so forth. So the title is very much about my experience with color and my experience with the tale, the stories. I grew up in Sudan, where there is lots of, there is a very strong culture of storytelling, and storytelling has been such an important part of my life, an important part of my ideas, my thinking, and my views, how I see the world. Storytelling has always been a way that I grew up with them. So I'm very much a friend of the stories, a friend of tales, a friend of gathering around the grandmother in a neighborhood or in my own home as she telling you a story. And of course the stories is not a very specific story that when we talk about stories, talk about a wide range of possibilities for using words and using incident, where there is lots of merging between time and places and clothes and people doing things and people travel, people die, people live, and like rich stories. So I grew up with that.
Now, tell me about a particular element or two of African folklore that you have incorporated from the storytelling into these works.
I wouldn't say I incorporate folklore. Rather, I will go for, or I will articulate it as the spirit of the stories. So I listen to stories and I rearrange them with my own views and thinking, how I see the world, how I see the storyteller, how I see her sound, how I see her look, and I rearrange them with, I go to schools here, I have been looking at lots of different artists, so I learn a lot from wide range of space organization, creating composition. So this is, I would say the stories that I'm dealing with at this point, they are my own stories in the way that I introduce them to the surveys.
Two interesting things. One, I noticed that you said her when you talked about the storyteller. And that's very telling. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that from the culture that you grew up in, traditionally that the woman is the storyteller? Tell me about that and how, did you use that, did you put that into, the canvases?
Well, that's a very good question, because even though there is lots of male storytellers and all different Middle Eastern countries, but in Africa, or I would say most of the African countries, the storyteller is the grandmother, not even the mother, but the grandmother. The storyteller always associated with the female, and of course, associated with the kindness, associated with the grandmother who would invite everyone to come and sit down and have tea with lots of milk and sugar and feed you and basically take care of you. But the stories in Africa are associated with women. And in my experience with these stories are the experience with women.
Now tell me a little bit maybe about one or two of the paintings and about what it is that the story that you were telling. Maybe tell me about the blue one.
As I said, I grew up in the Nile, and there is several stories that talk about floods and the relationship with unbehaving Niles every now and then. And the mythology of the Virgin and how the Virgin might be to the Nile, or how a village might sacrifice each year a Virgin to the Nile, where the Nile will start behaving, will not flood, will not destroy places, and also bring water, which is life, to the village. So there's lots of mythologies like that. And when I work with stories like that, I rearrange elements like the young lady that she will be thrown in the Nile, and the water, and the colors of the water, and the whole theme of sacrificing, trying to stay alive, trying to cope with nature that you cannot understand, you cannot respond to it positively, you might not use scientific means to build dams and all of that. And this is part of how we grow up as human beings and try to understand nature a little more and cope with it. But these are some of the stories, and usually they are very beautiful. So, yeah, so I would say these are kind of the stories.
What's the most personal painting here for you and why?
I would say most of these paintings are very personal for me because painting is very much a spiritual practice. So they all very personal to me. They all personal in terms of their colors and their images. And I work hard in each one of those paintings. I'm getting the best I have, and I study hard as well. I read a lot about different mythology, different artists. I look hard at lots of different artists from all kinds of culture and get inspired by them. So all of these are in this story. That's why each one of them is quite unique in a way that how the space is organized, and also in the way that the subject matter relate to the surface.